to be able to hear from the. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and you are watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. Today, we're going to take a look at parenting. We're continuing our discussion as we talk
Your show will
about
go live in 5 seconds.
community
4,
parenting.
3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio. Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution Radio Show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadek. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all.
Grand Rising, and thank you all for joining us on this Wednesday edition of the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And we'll be joined by our co-host, Kareem Hamid. And we're looking forward to your comments as we talk about healthy community child rearing. What would that look like? And most definitely, we want to hear from you. Give us a call, 515-605-9325, and press 1 when you're ready to speak, and we'll come right to you and get your thoughts as we take a look at what it would take for the community to step in and handle the process of helping single parents, elderly parents, parents who just need help in guiding and steering their children. If we parented our children collectively as a community, it would be so much different than if we just simply criticized that struggling single mother who doesn't know how, perhaps, to teach her children how to speak to adults in a respectful manner, or maybe doesn't know how to clothe them properly, or the single father, or even young couple who don't know how to make sure their children have a healthy meal in the morning and not just snack food or sugar drinks that get them so wired up they can't pay attention in school. What if we, as a community, helped those who didn't know better? We'll be back to talk about that after this quick break, and we want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment, so stay with us. The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution. And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, and our co-host Kareem Hamid is with us this morning to lend some wisdom. Assalamu alaikum. And we want to make sure we have a good connection here because we want to hear from you. Give us a call. 515-605-9325 or 515-605-9891 and press 1 when you're ready to speak, and we'll come right to you and get your thoughts. As we talk about community parenting, what would healthy community parenting look like? Now, we often hear people talk about the so-called good old days where they say, well, if I did something wrong and the lady down the street saw me and she gave me a whooping, and then I got home and she called my parents and I got a whooping again. And, and people talked about that. And they remember those times as times where the neighbors looked out for the children. Well, can we step it up a notch and expand it beyond the thought of getting spanked by strangers? And how about getting loved and nurtured by neighbors? Now, we did have those kinds of communities where we had the adults who were the coaches, the scout leaders, the dance instructors. We had neighborhoods where we had people who were involved with the child rearing, not just the school teachers. And during that time, even school teachers lived in our communities. So we did have that community-based child rearing where all adults took responsibility for the raising of the children. And all children felt a part of the community, even if their home life wasn't so stable. They had other adults that added to their growing up process. And that made our community safer because everybody knew whose child belonged to who. Everybody knew where you lived. And so there wasn't this anonymity where you could do wrong things and nobody say anything and nobody see anything. That didn't exist in those times where we actually were participating in the community raising of our children. There have been a couple of generations that have passed where children haven't seen that. And so they grow up to be adults that are very distant from each other. And they don't know how to recreate that. They don't know what that looks like. And so we need to visualize what healthy community child rearing looks like so that we can know how to create those kinds of communities for the children who are growing up today. So let's see if our co-host Kareem Hamid has joined us. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear. Wonderful. And we've got a caller on the line that wants to, yes, praise God. We're grateful that you joined us, you and the American Muslim 360 family. And we've got some callers on the switchboard already that want to talk about this. And we'd like to get your thoughts on this. We're looking at healthy community child rearing. What would it look like? We have to change what exists right now, which is the very separate, individualized kind of child rearing where parents are criticized if they do things wrong, but not helped. Where the struggling young single mother is scorned because she doesn't have the wisdom to know how to feed her children healthy foods and might give them, potato chips and pop for breakfast. Uh, People talk about the young father who has a baby by a woman over here, another baby by a woman over here, and has no idea of what he should do in terms of providing a stable environment where his children can see a healthy relationship between a man and a woman raising a family. We talk about the dysfunction, but are we as elders, as neighbors, as relatives, stepping in to help in a way that is helpful? And we're not just talking about having the power to spank, because we seem to go to that as the go-to for everything that we don't like. Oh, just beat the child. Oh, just beat the child. Oh, just beat the child. What about the nurturing? What about the spending the time to talk to them and listen to them? What about giving them safe places to gather and socialize and play so they're not always being kicked off the street because everybody's afraid every time young people gather together? What about having a home where our children's friends are welcome to hang out and have a safe environment where they know they are loved and nurtured and cared for and protected? What about having that as opposed to just simply being angry because they're misbehaving, and then the best thing we can do is think, well, let's hit them, and if they get too old to hit, just call the police? Can we do something different and create a different kind of community where every child is known by the family that they come from? And if the family is having difficulties, we can step in and help. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, baby, so now we are living in a very different time now. We use the phrase community and neighborhood at one time, there was a long-term living condition in the areas in which we lived. There wasn't a lot of moving about, moving to other areas of the city. We lived in one designated area. We knew one another, and that long-term relationship developed friendships and relationships between neighbors. That is not that's not the norm for right now. When neighborhoods were broken up by design, then the inhabitants, they somewhat scattered. They moved to other areas of the city or the municipality in which they lived. And that cohesiveness of the neighborhood and the neighbor was broken due to the decimation
of the African American neighborhood. You know, a phrase hood means a protection. We provided protection for each other. We felt an obligation, praise be to Allah. That's it. That's the word. We felt an obligation to one another. You know, if someone does something kind to you, for you, and you thank them, and they will say much obliged. I'm obligated to do that. I feel an obligation towards you. Now there's a disconnect, seems to be, between what we call the neighborhood and the neighbor. This happens, that they may speak to one another or nod their head or not speak at all. But that healthy relationship has not been created. You know, the idea of that I feel responsible for you, and I hope that you feel responsible for me and my children. For we live in a community, a neighborhood. That's not the situation now. We're scattered. You know, we are. And in a lot of cases, we don't even get to know our neighbor or develop a relationship in the communities in which we live. That has to be strengthened once more. The idea of neighborhood, a protection for the inhabitants and the children in the neighborhood that we live in. There was and I agree with you, the relationship wasn't always that somebody could whip you. That's I think we express that too much.
Yeah, we express that too much.
Right, but I can remember having a neighbor that took an interest in me.
Yes.
That would talk with me.
Yes.
That would encourage me.
Yes.
Be an example for me. You know, so that's the type of relationship that we had. It wasn't just to whip children. It was to accentuate the positive.
Yes.
You know, say, well, I heard that you got straight A's on your report card, and praise them for that.
Yes.
You know, accentuate the positive. Accentuate the positives that we see. But also, if there are negatives, we have to have the courage to speak to that which is negative, that which will affect the hood, that will affect the protection and the nourishing environment of the neighborhood. So that idea of just spanking, I think that's exaggerated a little bit too much.
Yes.
I can't remember any neighbor spanking me, but I do remember a neighbor that took an interest in me.
Yes.
That talked with me, that encouraged me. Neighbors that I looked up to because they displayed in front of me good character, you know, good character. So we have to establish a relationship as adults
right.
with
Right.
each other. But
Yeah.
it's not our children's fault. It's have we established a relationship with each other, and we protect each other. Someone breaks in your house, we say, I haven't seen anything. But most neighborhoods had what we call window raising granny.
Yep.
She sat at the front
They
window
watch
or
everything.
whatever,
Yes.
and she saw everything.
Yes.
So we have to establish that once more, and also don't have the fear to speak up.
Yes.
When we see that something is going wrong or something has happened, many times our lives are threatened. Let me say that this is real. Sometimes our lives are threatened. If you tell, they have a so-called street rule, no snitching. But you just committed a crime, man. You just broke in my neighbor's home, man.
Yes.
You just assaulted Miss Smith.
Yes.
She's 70 years old. What do you mean, no snitching?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's
So we have to get beyond that.
Yes.
And put the hood back in the neighbor.
Yes.
Protect.
Absolutely. And you're right. It is our responsibility as the adults. I remember growing up in a neighborhood where adults supervised programs. You knew who was the person who was the little league coach, and you know who the person was who was the block club president, and you know who the person was who had a little dance studio, and you know, children took classes and had recitals. I mean, you knew where the third grade teacher lives, you know, down the street. I mean, it's like people were involved in the activities of the children. They had programs that they were supervising, and they spent time. And like you say, you recognize the child that has the talent, and you know, you praise the one that, oh, I heard you got first place in the science fair at your school. I mean, adults who paid attention and praised the children who were doing well. When you organize events and children participate, organizing the community festivals, and people participate, and so you know who the families are, and you have a relationship with each other, like you say, and not everybody hiding in their own little house and not knowing anybody's name, don't know your children's friends' names or their parents' names, and then you see somebody break into a house and you close your blinds. You don't want to get involved. That's insane. And I don't know how we let it evolve to that point, but like you say, a lot of times the neighborhoods were decimated by economic distress when industries moved away. And so when they became transient, people didn't have that 20-year relationship where they raised their children together, and everybody knew everybody's children and grandchildren and all of that. So that's what we have to recreate, is the relationship. We've got callers on the line here that want to weigh in. And if you're listening online and want to join this conversation, give us a call, 515-605-9325, and press 1. When you're ready to speak, we'll open your mic and get your thoughts. We're talking about healthy community child rearing. What would it look like? And we are talking about it for the purpose of rebuilding it. What are the steps we're going to take to make it happen? So let's go to our phone lines. We can get in the call before we take a break at 312-597. Your mic is open. Give us your name, where you're calling from, and your comment about healthy community child rearing. What would it look like?
Yeah, Lito, hello. Koofy James, the Cherokee Indian.
Well, good morning, Koofy James.
Known all over the world for my work in establishing our nation in this country.
Well, tell us some of the things that you've done toward this process of revitalizing and rebuilding our communities.
That was the beginning of understanding that we are indigenous people in America. That's the start of the building of a community. When I was a young kid, at 7 years old, growing up in the suburbs, we used to have trucks drive down the street as you were walking to school, and they would yell out, you know, country white boys, "Hey, little niggas, y'all going back to Africa now." And I would look up at the car and see a big old white guy with a beard, a lot of hair. I said, "Man, we ain't from no Africa." And he said, "Oh, you a smart little nigga." And he would pull out his shotgun. "Little nigga, look at this." And he would point his shotgun at my head and drive the truck off real slow. My mama saw that from the window. I became a neighborhood hero. The whole neighborhood rallied around me. I started a candy store. The neighbors started gardening, and the neighbors started looking at me, and I used to shovel their snow, and that incident sparked a whole community of togetherness. I put a basketball court in my yard, and all the children would come down to my house and buy candy and pop and chips and play basketball on the basketball court. And when I went on to college, when I came home from college, the neighbor where I put the basketball court, it was a dirt court, little wood, stick. Sometimes we had like a bike rim for a basketball hoop. When I came home from college, my neighbor built a concrete basketball court with lights in that same spot.
Wow.
To honor me. It's there right now. It's there right now. So, a community, the problem with a stability of a community, okay? Now, we have our picnics and gatherings, and Friday we get together and cousins would come over. A community started with, first of all, family.
That's true.
Then it would extend. Your party was so big, you had so much food, the neighbors peeking out the window. You're like, "Hey, come on over. We got enough to share." And that's how it extended from gatherings or sometimes it would come together through a bad incident. You know, a rainstorm, a snowstorm. When you had some storms back in the 70s, 80s, where it'd be 20 inches of storm around. Neighbors had to come together then.
Right.
Can you shovel my snow for me? Now shovel this Applewhite snow. Make $3, make $5. The neighborhood, we were forced to come together. But I look back, the issue was all of those families worked for a white industry. All those black families on that block had jobs at white industries. And if those white industries closed down or they lost their job, the community started to fade away. And that community I live in right now is entirely taken over by immigrants. Okay? So if you want to see a community, some guys came in and bought the land and then put these immigrants over there. Okay? And our house is still out there. We haven't sold. If you want to see what a community looks like, you're going to have your own businesses for stability to carry it. Because if you are working for somebody else, they can drop you, and the community will fall overnight. You see? It's going to have to look like Rosewood. It's going to have to look like Oklahoma, where they own their businesses, and they own their churches, they own the grocery stores. You see? Those are what a community can look like for stability. You see? Now,
I totally agree.
Right now, I'm going to say this here. Did you know in 1917 there was a Spanish flu pandemic, just like going on right now with the COVID pandemic?
Yeah.
That was in 1917. It went from 1917 to 1928. Okay? Back then, if you didn't wear a face mask, they would shoot you with a shotgun. Okay? Do you know what black? All you gotta do is go to YouTube and then put in Spanish flu, and then they have recurrent stories. All the ladies tell me what happened, what they saw. Wagons, horses and wagons coming in, pulling people out.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're right. We've had pandemics before. You're right. Yes.
let me finish here. I know I can talk a lot.
Yeah, we got to go to a break, but go ahead.
I asked myself, what were black folks doing back then in 1917 when the splash happened? You know what they were doing?
What were they doing?
They gathered themselves together and got their land and started their own towns. They don't want to be a part of that.
Well, that's definitely a lesson learned. You're right. I totally agree. Yes.
They got together and they got land. It's like, we're going to do for ourselves because the government wanted control. And this is what's going on right now. The government wants controlling every daily life.
Yeah. Well, you made some definite points we're going to talk about. We got to take a break now, Kuvi, but we're going to be back and we're going to talk more about some of the points that you raised, because what he has said when it comes to economic independence, that's a reality. A lot of the communities that fell apart because other industries pulled out, and neighborhoods where the people own the businesses, they remain stable. That's a lesson that we got to learn. So we'll talk about how do we rebuild that where you have neighborhood owned businesses so that people aren't suddenly rendered economically devastated when a big company moves away, like we're seeing in some of these Walmarts that are closing. Everybody's panicking because when Walmart moved in, the neighborhood businesses owned by the local residents went out of business. And now look. So we'll talk about that, because that is a reality. We'll be right back after this quick break. And if you're listening online and want to join this conversation, give us a call, 515-605-9325, and press 1 when you're ready to speak, and we'll come right to you and get your thoughts. And we'll be right back after this quick break. And if you're watching us on Facebook and YouTube, just write in your comments and we'll share them with our listening and viewing audience. We are talking about healthy community child rearing. What would it look like? We'll be right back, so stay with us.
What happens when a group of people are kidnapped from their homes, smuggled away in chains, and held captive in a foreign land where they are tortured, raped, and forced to perform hard labor by the lash of a whip and under the constant threat of death? Slavery, the African-American psychic trauma. What happened to the doctors, writers, scientists, builders, educators, and spiritual leaders from Africa's golden age? Who did they really capture and sell into slavery? Are all African Americans suffering from psychic trauma because of a conspiracy to hide their true identities? Do you have psychic trauma? Take the test on page 22 of the book and see. Order it online today at www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. And get your personally autographed copy of the book, Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma.
And of course, if you are listening online and have a memory you'd like to share of those times when you may have had a community that was cohesive and involved, we want to hear from you. Give us a call, 515-605-9325, and press 1 when you're ready to speak.
Are you constantly arguing with your spouse? Are your children misbehaving and acting out? Someone in your family abusing drugs? Have you been a victim of domestic violence? Are you grieving over the loss of a loved one? Let us help you restore serenity to your life. At Serenity Family Social Services, we understand that good mental health is a result of emotional well-being. Our goal is to assist you and your family in removing emotional distress and restoring harmony and balance to your lives. We offer individual, couples, and family counseling. I'm Howard Williams, CEO of Serenity Family Social Services. Call us today at 312-315-4820. That's 312-315-4820.
Do you want to live in a world without war? Join our global peace movement. Heavenly Culture World Peace Restoration of Light transcends culture, religion, ideology, and other boundaries to achieve peaceful harmony in the global society. HWPL is committed to bringing world peace and cessation of war through peaceful dialogue between religious groups. I am Director Shin-Suk Kim of the HWPL Chicago branch of North America. Join us for our next gathering. Call 773-580-1501 and be a part of the movement for world peace. Email us at chicagohwpl@gmail.com.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. You know, I forgot. I think, Kareem, was I supposed to hit the mute during the... I may have forgotten to hit the button.
I don't know. I know I didn't. The way we are set up now, I can't put your mic on hold.
Yeah. Well, I'll try it.
We'll manage. We'll manage in a joyful way. Praise you to Allah.
Yes, we always work around whatever technical issues we have. So thank you so much for your patience. Yes, well, we're back, and of course, Kufi made some very key points about how economics plays a role in community stability. And when you have, because I can remember, you know, the neighborhood candy store that was owned by, you know, a resident, and I remember the lady who used to make those greasy bags of French fries and sell them out of her, you know, back door, you know, because people raised money doing things like that. But you knew them. You knew the local clothing store owner, you know, the local hair shop and barber shop. You knew the people who owned those businesses, and the grocery store that were owned by the residents that, you know, the local residents worked in. So the economy was localized. We've moved away from that so that many people are depending on some, you know, big conglomerate, some big store chain, some big factory. And that works for a while, where everybody's stable and paying their bills and getting their paychecks. But what happens if that company decides it's no longer in their economic interest to be in your neighborhood, and they decide to move away? That's what's happened all across the Chicago neighborhoods. And I know it's happened in St. Louis and Detroit and all the other places where ghettos have been created from what had been stable working class neighborhoods. And we have not recovered from these corporate decisions to move their operations elsewhere, whether it was for a cheaper labor force or, you know, less crime or whatever their reason was. But the fact is, we didn't, as grown adults, take economic responsibility for providing for our needs and employing our children. And so other people came in and exploited that situation and flooded the community with drugs that became a product that was being sold and bought by people in the community and outside the community, and making some people in the community wealthy, but at a very high price. And this is the state we're in right now. So how do we reverse that? And I don't see a way to do it unless we're collectively working as the grown adults we are and deciding to put our money together. And one of our callers is always saying this. I believe it's Obadiah, always saying, look, just have a group of people put in $100 a month or $100 a week, whatever the case may be, but invest in yourself so that you build your own economic structures that employ yourselves, and you won't have children committing crimes and feeding the criminal justice system. So what's the first step to doing that? Let's say if we wanted to buy one of these closed stores, buy out, a Walmart that's closing, or, Sears was another chain that closed and left a lot of vacancies. Kareem, in your thought, in your vision of what it would take, what would it take for us to trust each other enough to do that? Could a church organize that kind of economic effort? I know Minister Farrakhan tried to do it with the program Power People Organize, working for economic rebirth. Tried to organize the groups of people to put together funds to develop products. The issue of trust always stops us cold, where for some reason we don't do what the people in Rosewood and other in Black Wall Street and all those industries did. We don't do what they did in creating banking institutions that we control because we have a trust factor. How do we overcome that to get to that point of economic independence?
You know that there is terminology that we have somewhat left. In religious circles, we are obligated to supply neighborly needs. Let me say that again. In religious circles, we are obligated to supply neighborly needs. What has happened is, speaking of the large conglomerate that have moved into areas and just dominated the financial life of that community. It's not just among the African Americans. Whole towns have been negatively affected by the spread of this huge conglomerate called Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Now Costco have developed a huge huge store here in St. Louis. There's Sam, so what that does is the small business can't compete.
Right.
Because they cannot purchase at the manufacturing price.
Right.
The larger the order, the smaller the unit. The cheaper the unit.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we have to inconvenience ourselves in order to establish ourselves and maintain a healthy environment for us. I remember when the word was introduced to the United States, convenience stores.
Yes.
What does that mean? I'm going to make it convenient to supply your needs. You don't have to do it. I got you. Don't worry. I put a store right down on the corner, and it is convenient it is convenient that you shop here. Sometimes we have to ignore convenience and look at the larger picture. Dollar General, Family a Dollar, all of these, those are 7-Eleven, those are convenience stores. But they are connected with a huge corporate structure.
Mm-hmm.
It is franchising. And that drove a lot of independent businesses out of business. So sometimes we have to bite the bullet. Sometimes we have to look beyond just convenience and look at the overall health, the long-term health of the environment in which we live in. And that supplying neighborly needs in Rosewood and those other areas that had established themselves, the inhabitants, the people that lived there could not shop in the stores downtown. They could not, they couldn't shop in the stores downtown, so they developed their own stores. And I'm quite sure that was a struggle, but they overcame that struggle, and it became a viable financial tool to strengthen and finance the neighborhood. So we have to look at this here with a wide perspective, with broad eyes, and be willing to sacrifice. That there's a friend of mine that has opened up a bakery shop, bakery store. She sells pastries, and she had a grand opening this past Saturday, and a lot of people came to her shop, supporting her. We have to keep that up, you know. So what? It's 15 cents cheaper at 7-Eleven. Bear that. We have to be educated consumers and support independent businesses. You know, sometimes we will withdraw our support for the convenience of saving that 15 cents or even that dollar.
Well, you
we
know,
have to know what sacrifice is for real and look at the whole picture of what these convenience stores have done to our neighborhood, our communities. And now a Walmart, which is the biggest giant, is laying off and shutting down stores. Let's step into let us step into that vacancy. Let us once again open up entrepreneurial stores and pursuits in the absence of this huge giant. But we have to be willing to sacrifice and look at the big picture. Supply neighborly needs. We know we need food, clothing, shelter.
right.
You name it. The community itself is responsible and obligated to supply neighborly needs, but we have to be conscious of what has took place and be conscious of reestablishing ourselves. That convenience store rendered us unconscious. We just walked in without thinking, without no long-term thought, and took our businesses to these so-called convenience stores, and it shut down Mr. Smith's
Right.
small grocery store.
Right.
It shut down Sister so-and-so's dress shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can reposition ourselves and be willing to sacrifice for our independence and our freedom. Our independence and our freedom. There's a cost that comes along with independence and freedom.
Well,
Be
that
willing
is
to
true.
sacrifice that.
As they say, freedom ain't free. But well, one of the things that I look at, like you say, the convenience stores that will undercut a locally owned store, but not much, just a few cents. But if people are unconscious, they'll go where things are cheaper. I think what we need to do strategically, and I saw this done with the Ethiopian restaurants. We have about 10 Ethiopian restaurants in the city of Chicago, and our company was hired to do a promotional video about Ethiopian food. And we went to one of their business meetings, and what we learned was that what these 10 independently family owned Ethiopian restaurants did every week, they had a business meeting and they would decide, what they were going to buy. And they had one store that was owned by the Ethiopians. They all did bulk purchasing of their supplies, the food, the spices, the products, everything they needed. They bought in bulk, so they were able to all get good prices. And if one of them was having a special event, they would all send people to attend. They would all support it, sell tickets and everything. If one of them was having like a entertainer or something that was going to be there, or some special event. So they always made sure each of them was successful, even though they were all independently owned and all had their own, special brand. But we saw them organize in such a way that even though they were independently owned, they bought collectively, because that's how the big conglomerates were able to ease out the smaller owned businesses. They could buy in bulk. Well, we can do the same thing, even though we might have independent restaurants. And that's one of the things that I would like to see. Those dress shops, those restaurants, those smaller mom and pop operations get together with those same like businesses, and there's certain supplies that you all buy. Have a store that you buy in bulk with. It gives you the same kind of discounts that the larger corporate competitors have, so that you don't have to charge more. Because there's some people, they're not going to say, well, I'd rather support the local person rather than this big corporation that could shut down. They're not conscious. They're strictly going by what is cheaper, because they're going according to the bills that they have to pay and the money they have to save. So we have to be strategic and being able to offer the same or even a better discount than the competitor, who might jump up and close shop at any point and leave us stranded with nothing. We have to empower ourselves to be able to do the same kinds of cooperative economics that the corporations are doing. That's all corporations are. It's cooperating. We have to cooperate, which again comes down to trust. You have to trust each other enough and be honest enough to be able to pool money together, or at least have an organized plan where you're all buying together and all benefiting from the corporate structure that you set up, even though you retain your independence. It's very doable. And when we start thinking cooperation instead of competition, then we can thrive. The little mom and pop store is not going to compete with a Walmart unless that mom and pop owned store has 20 other mom and pop stores that they're buying collectively with, at a supplier that has a business relationship with them that is profitable for everybody involved. And this is very doable, but it takes a vision and a realization that we have the same power as any of these major chains. What I would like to see with these store closings, the Walmart's closing, I would like to see these stores being employee owned. Because you have people who've been running this store. Why can't they collectively pool savings or whatever, buy out stock, whatever it takes, and own these stores. Now I know cooperatively owned stores, that there are challenges with that. Like you say, there's a sacrifice. There are challenges. You got the same issues, employee problems where people are not putting forth the effort that they need to, maybe need more training. Sometimes you have employee theft. But I think if employees own the store, you wouldn't have that same level of stealing that happens and ends up shutting down a lot of these places, because you're stealing from yourself. You're taking away from your own profits. So it's a change of mindset. And maybe that's the first step, changing the mindset.
Yes, ma'am. Here in St. Louis, there's a family called Roberts family. Mike Roberts and his family. They are businessmen, African American. And on one of the main thoroughfares here in St. Louis is a street called Kings Highway. And that was the site of Sears, the Sears building. The Sears shut down, as we all know. But Mike Roberts, I'm not sure if he has investors with him. Him and his brother and the Roberts family, they, I don't know whether they purchased the building or leased it or whatever, but they obtained that building. And they opened it up for commercial businesses established inside of that site. Commercial businesses, government offices, and it's still operating, praise be to God, and we applaud his efforts. Mike Roberts did that. He purchased that building, if I'm not mistaken, and opened it up for independent businesses to establish themselves there. Now, here in St. Louis, there's a community, the Bosnian community. We know that most Bosnians came here as refugees. They moved in a section of South St. Louis, and they opened up businesses, a mosque, insurance companies, and people refer to that area as Little Bosnia.
Little Bosnia.
They have a Bosnian Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Bosnian Chamber of Commerce, and all businessmen and women, they meet and they discuss the commercial health of the community in which they live. We can do the same. We can do the same, but we have to have a healthy appetite for a healthy community.
Right.
We have to be conscious.
You have to have a spirit of independence.
We have to be conscious in that area.
Yeah.
A spirit of cooperation.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Yes. Definitely. You have to have a spirit of cooperation. You have to know you can't make it by yourself, and you're going up against corporations who are cooperating. That's the only way. And just like your Bosnian community, I've seen the Ethiopian community. We know we got a whole Chinatown here in Chicago and all these other ethnicities. People know that the health of their community depends on a thriving economy in which you teach your children how to run a business. You employ your children in the business. You supply the community needs, and therefore you are circulating dollars among the families. That's how it works. If we try to do something other than that, in other words, waiting for somebody else to come in and put money into a community and into a business that they own, they can just easily walk away and leave us with nothing, which is, we saw Target do it here in Chicago. And, elected officials wanted to have a protest march and demand that Target not leave. Look, that's an independent business. If they decide to leave, they have the right to do that. You can't make somebody stay. it's our responsibility to have provided for our needs. If we didn't do that, then we experience the consequences. So we got some comments here on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Bert Lyle gives us an okay sign. It says yes, he agrees. And Zelda Robinson, our Monday morning mindfulness host, says, Grand Rising, beautiful queen, teacher, and brother Kareem Hamid. Thanks for the awakening. And she says, inconvenience can cause chaos to communities. We see it daily in all communities. Convenience can kill. And, you know, that whole thing with the convenience stores, the cheap products that we get so used to buying, the dollar stores where they, you know, and nothing against China, but, you know, stuff made in China, which, you know, you get $1 for this, $1 for that. So you get to the point where you get stuck on that convenience. And then if somebody tries to charge more, they can't sustain the business because we're used to the convenience of buying cheap products from stores that don't pay their employees very well. And then when those stores leave us, we're stuck because we haven't figured out how to create for ourselves. And that's the challenge we're facing. Yes.
Yeah, we have to keep up with the time. We're living in a global economic system now. So our horizons have expanded.
Absolutely.
Our forces have expanded. Even our customers have expanded. So the same way as people pool their resources and order directly from the suppliers in China, that door is wide open to all of us.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yes, it is. So we can't tell the manufacturer where to open up his business.
Absolutely.
We know he has moved on.
Right.
But if we had the consciousness to pool our resources and purchase at the manufacturer's level,
that's it.
That reduces the price. And there are whole, I can't think of what are the whole shipping, what you call it, I'm not a crate, but whole shipping crates of goods that are purchased from China.
Oh, yes. Big box cars full of them. Yes.
Even African countries, if we had the consciousness to think out, to think along those levels, then inshallah we can supply our neighborly needs and spur economic growth in the communities in which we live. But it's going to take sacrifice and trust and honesty.
Those are the big things.
Integrity in our business life.
Absolutely.
Ethical business practice.
Absolutely.
Don't undercut.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing, is to think as a collective, not think, well, how can I get ahead? How can I get more? How can I take advantage of this, you know, and so I can get wealthy? Because that's what people end up doing, getting themselves in trouble. It's the greed factor. And next thing you know, somebody has gotten indicted for stealing or skimming off the top or running off with the money, because, you know, the mindset. And Zelda from HLN TV show says again, she says, teach Elder Kareem. The system is crumbling, affecting all communities. Time for small businesses to flourish. And that is true. And one of the things that, you know, and people are coming up with different ways. And she mentions that ChicagoItex.com is a great resource for business owners and entrepreneurs to purchase the same items as Walmart or big box stores. And you can mention promo code ZELDA, Zelda, and get $100 to shop immediately. So that is, go to chicago.itex.com iTex. That's ITEX.com. You know, a lot of people, like you mentioned, Kareem, a lot of people are coming up with some creative ways of competing because we have a global economy and purchasing is different now. So if we can look ahead to the future and see how do we take advantage of this new global economy, how do we create these same kind of Walmart type structures where we're importing the goods from all over the place and just basically providing a means where people can come and purchase them. We can do that. We can form these cooperative buying organizations and create our own community owned big box stores or whatever the case may be. But we can create that because everything is just, you know, at our fingertips. Well, we got to take another break, but we'll talk about that when we come back, because ultimately we have to rear our children in communities where we are also employing them. We have to empower them with the skills and the ability to earn a living and circulate wealth so they have respect for the community. That's what's missing, and that's what's destroying us. So we'll be right back after this quick break. I'm gonna try to mute the mic and see if that helps you all be able to play the PSAs. We'll try it this time, see if it works. We'll be right back, so stay with us. And if you are listening online and want to join this conversation, give us a call, 515-605-9325 or 515-605-9891, and press 1 when you're ready to speak, and we'll come right to you and get your thoughts.
Have you ever dreamed of going to exotic places, meeting fascinating people, enjoying uplifting music, and spending nights in a luxurious hotel? Do you look forward to a relaxing vacation where you can walk along the beach or sit in a quiet park and enjoy the sunset or sunrise? Whether you're flying around the world or driving across the country, we will share travel tips that will help you stay safe while you enjoy the journey. Join me every third Saturday of the month, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and move around with Deborah here on the Female Solution Show. Call in and comment 515-605-9325 and press 1 to speak. Is Monday morning a struggle to get out of bed, into the swing of things? Well, don't worry, you are not alone. Join us for thought-provoking, stimulating, and mindful conversations on higher learning with Delta Speak for your Monday morning mindfulness session on Blog Talk Radio, The Female Solution, Mondays, 7:30 until 9 a.m. Be sure and send your ideas, thoughts, comments, and suggestions. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, visit ZeldaSpeaks.com and send us your info. We'd love to have you. Experience mindfulness moments with the mindfulness/stress relief coach, Zelda Speaks. And thanks for sharing the mindfulness moment tip of the day. Stay on purpose, stay empowered, and stay tuned to your next session of mindfulness on higher learning with Zelda Speaks. Make it a mindful day. And thanks for listening. Join us every second Saturday of the month, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time, here on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show for Neighborhood of Joy. We'll have powerful conversations inviting women to walk in the light
And we are back. You are listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, along with our co-host Kareem Hamid and our American Muslim 360 family. And we want to hear from you. Give us a call, 515-605-9325 or 515-605-9891. And press 1 when you're ready to speak. And if you're on our switchboard now and have a comment, you haven't made a comment yet, press 1. And we'll be glad to hear your thoughts as we talk about healthy community child rearing. What would it look like? Well, we know one of the major things that has to happen is that our economies need to be community controlled. And that means our children have to be prepared to participate in the economy of the community. We've talked about this before, the fact that high schools stop offering things like auto shop and wood shop, where people were learning life skills and skills that are necessary in every community: fixing cars, painting, carpentry, so that whether you go to college or not, and not every profession requires a college degree, most don't. So you could get out of high school and immediately start working in areas that are necessary. When we give control of our child rearing and child training to people who just see us as cogs in a wheel in a factory, then we end up getting treated like non-people, used and cast aside. So when these programs get taken out of our schools and our children cannot compete or even enter these fields where they can sustain their own lives, then it means they can't form families and they can't provide homes. They can't teach skills to their children. And we become communities of dependent people. And then we blame the people because they don't have the means to provide for themselves. We have young people who they're at the age where they should be having families. They're at the age where they should be having children. They're in their late teens and early 20s. We talked about this last week when we listened to the audio from the Conversations with God book series. Youth is when you're supposed to have children. But when you have to tell people you can't have children until you have all the economic requirements taken care of, and then we make it so that that's not possible, and then we punish them when they have children anyway by neglecting them and their children, why are we surprised that the children are angry and violent, that have been raised in these homes where they got no support? Why are we surprised? So let's change our thinking. Children grow up at the same rate they've grown up for centuries. Adulthood, early adulthood, is the time when we're supposed to be reproducing children. And what we talked about last week, the elders are supposed to be that support system that helps to raise the children, while the young parents are establishing themselves. And they can establish themselves if the structures are there for them to do so, which means self-empowerment through owning the means of our own community services. What do we need? We need clothing. We need shelter. We need transportation. We need health care. We need to be providing these things for ourselves and training our children to do the same so that they're growing up prepared to contribute. And the young people can go ahead and form families in the way that is normal and natural at the age that it is normal and natural. and stop waiting for them to get 40 and 45 and 50 years old before they have a child because, oh, now I can afford a home. Now I have a stable income. Now I can start a family. That's ridiculous. If 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, if that is the age where the seeds of life are being planted, rather than be scornful of young parents, let's provide the community support system so that parenting can happen at the age when it's supposed to. And the structures can be there for these parents to get what they need. Yes.
Naima, we have another millstone around our neck that is prohibiting us from establishing ourselves financially.
And what is that?
We status simple. Status simple. Brand name. We have been captured by status symbol. Only purchasing a certain so-called brand of clothing, furniture, cars, whatever. And we have got caught up in status symbol, that these material objects is an indication of my elevation of status among my people. And we are being siphoned off. Our finances are being siphoned off based upon status symbol and brand name. We look at the Asians. I'm not picking on them or anything because they are very industrious people. They don't have to work thinking. I don't see them breaking their necks to purchase Louis Vuitton and all of these high-priced items. They don't. Their children go get the education, and they don't have that millstone around their neck of having to wear a certain brand, or drive a certain brand, or look a certain way. That cycles off our financial strength. It just keeps us locked into the position of consumer and not manufacturer. Those that have these brands, these so-called high brands, they have those items manufactured offshore. And what we are pointing to, that we should utilize the global economy and use offshore manufacture or purchase directly from a manufacturer. I'm just saying. So we have to change our mindset. It's not about status. It's about our overall health as human beings. As human beings. Not wanting to lord over another person, but look at the overall health of the total community. So we have been socially engineered and tricked into leaving the health of our race. We walked away from that, seeking status from it. And most of our wealth and our earnings go to trying to establish a certain status. When we get through, we are still at the bottom rung of the financial world. Our pockets are being picked. We have to come into a higher consciousness. None of us are free until all of us are free. None of us have doubt until all of us have doubt. And until we establish ourselves in this competitive global economy, take advantage of the opportunity open to us, then we will remain at the bottom rung. People will always just fail to us. So we have the opportunity, inshallah, to, if we can, to purchase directly from the manufacturer involved. be willing to sacrifice. I ask this question of myself: which generation that is leading these high institutions of education, which generation will be willing to sacrifice and not go and stand on the auction block of these large companies? Which generation are willing to sacrifice and employ what they have gained by way of business management, inventory flow, all of those things that they have learned, whereby they are hired to manage someone else's business. So when I say sacrifice, that's what I'm speaking of. First off, we have to change our mindset. That's very important. Look at the overall health of us as a people. I'll stop that there.
Well, I'm thinking of how the young people that we say are so stuck on name brands, how did they get that way? Because that's some deep brainwashing. Somebody can make you pay an exorbitant amount of money for a handbag or a pair of shoes or a dress or a shirt because it has someone else's name on it. And you want to appear to have wealth, so you spend money for the appearance of wealth because you believe that you will be treated better if you appear to have wealth. So who is reinforcing that thought? Did it come from the parents themselves? The entertainment industry. But my question is, if a child is raised in a family where they are treated well and they observe their parents treating other people well, whether those people have money or not, then the standards for who deserves good treatment becomes everybody deserves good treatment. But if you observe your parents valuing people who have money and the artificial status of expensive clothing and cars, if you observe your parents admiring and giving deference to people because they're wearing expensive jewelry or other symbols of wealth and status, if you observe your parents speaking highly of people because they are wealthy, I mean, how many people were admiring Donald Trump because he had wealth? So much so that they elected him president, even though he had absolutely no governmental experience whatsoever. And they were merely admiring him because he was a wealthy man with his name on some buildings. And they put him in government office. What standards are we teaching our children when we put people up on a pedestal because they have wealth? We're teaching these values. The children didn't learn them just out of nowhere. They observed the adults in their environment, setting the standard for who gets respect. And if we set the standard that people who get respect are people who have more money, then what we're teaching them is what you need to do is appear to have more money and you will get respect. And then if they observe us showing extreme disrespect to people who don't have money, if they observe us scorning people who may be living off of public aid or even homeless, if our children are observing us despise people for being dressed in raggedy clothes or old shoes, and our children hear us talking about these people as if they are worthless, we're teaching this value. So when our children come to the conclusion that if they're wearing designer clothing or carrying a designer bag, they will be given greater respect, we taught them that. We can't blame other people because they learned it observing our behavior and who we are giving respect to. Who are we honoring? Who are we striving to imitate? So now the entertainment industry, you're right. The entertainment industry has taken that and run with it. You want to be this greatly admired and worshipped singer or dancer or rap star or actor. You have to look like this and have money to buy these things so that you can have the respect and admiration that they have. So if we did not teach our children that regular people who buy their clothes on sale or at the flea market even can still be respected, then we're setting them up to be manipulated, because we're teaching them in order to be respected, you must appear to have wealth and you must spend a lot of money for your things. We're not teaching them economics. We're teaching them the vanity of a fake appearance. And so that's what they go after. So if we don't want them to have that value, we have to change how we are treating people. How are we treating each other? How are we talking about the family members who might be going through an economic difficulty? How are we talking about the family member who maybe can't buy their children new shoes? And are we talking about them real bad and scorning them and ignoring them if they ask for help because we find it despicable that they don't have wealth? How are we talking about the people close to us so that our children learn what we value? They're only learning this behavior from us. What have we taught them about who gets respect, who's deserving of respect? And do you have to buy respect? Is that what we taught them? So what we want to,
you are so correct.
And let us know if you've got anybody on your switchboard that wants to speak. We'll make sure we open their mics.
Okay, I invite you on the AM360 if you would like to join in with this rewarding conversation. I ask you to press 1 on your phone and will unmute your mic live button. Also on the Female Solution Studio, if you would like to leave your commentary, press 1 on your phone. And Naima or myself will unmute your mic. Let's talk about it. Yeah. And I'm finding, and it's kind of hard to accept, but I understand the conscious. These things require conscious thought, and conversations like this, it sparks conscious thinking. So if you are conscious and something has struck your mind that God has blessed you with, that you would like to share, we ask that you press on your phone. I will unmute your mic. Sometimes we don't we don't respond because we're victims of the subject that we're discussing.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
Yeah.
If the shoe fits, y'all.
I spoke once of him manipulating people to buy large trucks, big Ram trucks, and Dodge, this big old home in question, huge trucks, and it's one person.
I know.
Driving in this big truck.
Ridiculous.
If you ask him, will you help me move my phone? No, man. Oh, no.
Get my truck dirty.
No. And, no, I bet that, no. Trucks used to be a work truck.
Right.
And someone called me and said, I'm one of those that have purchased one of those large trucks.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with it. Well, yeah, you're right. I'm going to have to readjust my thinking. There's nothing wrong with that. All of us are victims of what we don't know. All of us are victims of what we don't know.
Right.
So we invite you to press on your phone. This is a very important conversation we're having now. It's about supplying the sustenance to our people.
Right. I mean,
that is held without.
right. Because the reality is, like Zelda mentioned earlier, the systems are collapsing. They're not going to sustain us. And our responsibility is to create something else. We have to grow up, people. We have to be the adults that we are. Nobody's going to take care of you. The people who are going to thrive in this new global economy are people who are thinking ahead and planning how their children are going to be able to take advantage of all these new opportunities. Your children have to have some skills. They have to have some knowledge, and they have to have the ability to create. The systems that exist now will not sustain them. And there's nothing wrong with a college degree. But even going to college, you have to have a vision of how you can create opportunities for yourself by empowering yourself with skills that are needed for the global economy. What are you able to do that people need that they will pay you for? And even if no one pays you, can you create your own job? Can you create your own business? Do you have the means to sustain yourself? And do you have a group of people that you can work with cooperatively to create something that sustains all of you? This is what's going to be necessary for survival in this new global economy. It takes some creative thought. It takes a willingness to do a multiplicity of things. And if we know that our schools are not supplying technical skills, social skills, homemaking skills, then our job as adults is to provide those lessons. Whether it's a community program, a program out of somebody's home, whatever it is, our children have to know how to take care of themselves and provide for their needs in a way that is legal and helpful to the community. If the only people who have a game plan are the international drug dealers, and it is an international business, if they're the only ones who have a game plan for our children, then guess who's going to be the employers? And then guess what the consequences are going to be? Widespread drug addiction, because people turn to drugs when they're in a state of depression and despair. And all of the other ills that come with aberrant behavior when someone's not in their right mind. So if the people who are planning to employ those who are without skills in our communities are already planting the seeds for the drug crops that they're growing, they're already got a game plan. Where's our game plan? Where's our game plan to make sure we got carpenters to build our homes? Where's our game plan to make sure we have the auto mechanics to fix our vehicles? Where's our game plan to make sure we're studying some of the new heating technology and solar energy? Where's our game plan to make sure we're studying some of the new discoveries in self-healing and all of the medical and health needs that we're going to have so that we can reverse the process of premature aging that's coming with eating bad food and drinking poisoned water and breathing polluted air? Where is our game plan? It's got to be here. It's got to be here because the future is coming. Are we preparing for it? In a healthy community-based child rearing plan, we're looking at every single child. What can we do to help this child grow to fruition